Well, again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and coming out here. Again, the community loves you so much. You've created some amazing movies. I assume back in when you made these movies, you didn't intend for them to be caught on by, this kind of new audience that's enjoying it more for the story as opposed to the adult scenes. Did you ever see something like that happening?
Never in a million years. When we were making these movies, you know, it's like I thought, well, maybe 2,000 copies will go out,
Right.
initial sale, and then people will buy them here and there. But there was always so much product, being dumped into the market that it's like it would, you'd get your premiere and the movie would go out and you think, okay, maybe a few thousand people are seeing it. And then, they're on to the next one. So I was shocked, I have to say, when, I was playing around on YouTube, which I never normally do that much when I'm working, but because of COVID, and I saw your site and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, Tony, look at this. They've got a bunch of movies on here. So, and then when I heard more from you about the following that actually exists, it blew my mind. It really blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I know I talked to you a little about this, over email, but your movies had began to get popular again around like 2011, 2012-ish. Someone had uploaded a copy of Boy Band with all of the adult scenes cut out, and it caught on like wildfire. Everyone loved the story, they loved the characters, they thought it was kind of funny, and it grew from there. And that's kind of when I jumped into all of this, and I purchased a copy of Catalinaville, not knowing a single thing about it. I just knew it had that Steve Rambo guy in it, and it was made by you. So I did the same thing. I cut out the adult scenes, I put it on YouTube, and it got over 1 million views, and people loved it. They ate it up.
That is shocking. Shocking.
I never once imagined anything would grow to this level, but yeah, over 1 million people had seen my old version of Catalinaville from God, almost 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now again it's continuously evolving and growing.
Wow, I mean that's really, it's great. I mean it's amazing, and to think that it had longevity like that, it really makes me feel good.
Right. It's a good movie too. Like all things considered, the story, like the filming, like it's a good movie. It's enjoyable.
That was one of our bigger budget movies,
Mm-hmm.
so we were able to put a little bit more bells and whistles in it than a lot of the ones that we released. We actually have like double the budget for like a Catalinaville or a Score, so we could go to better locations and have more props and a larger cast. And a lot of times also we'd invest in more time to shoot it. So we would shoot the oral on one day and get the money shots for the oral, and then go into the anal and get the money shots for that. So it looked like, wow, these guys are like total studs coming twice on the scene.
Right, right. How many? So Catalinaville. Going back to that one for a second. I know we're going off the list of questions here. I'm kind of going off track. How many cities was that filmed in? Because it kind of jumps all around. It's like a cross country excursion.
Sure. So we did Chicago, of course, which is where we would film the International Mr. Leather contest. So we would go there each year to film that because they hired us to do that. And we would shoot movies while we were there. So we shot a lot of it in Chicago. We were also in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
That was where the catering scene
was. The pool party scene, right?
And then we were also in Breckenridge, Colorado, which is like 10,000 feet, impossible to breathe. We're all like shooting
right, up on the mountains.
Up in the mountains there. And then LA.
Right, so kind of all over the place. That's really cool that you guys were able to travel around to all those different locations and really put that story together. I like that.
Yeah, and I had a great crew. I mean, my crew, Brad Austin and Jeff and Tony,
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of would collaborate and work together. We'd all come up with like ideas to make scenes better and, to really, and they were all in, it wasn't like they were just going there for the paycheck. When we were doing like project, we were all in. If Brad Austin was directing a movie, I was there on the set and helping him develop it and write it. And I would probably be his videographer for a lot of those as well. And, it was a really great family environment at Catalina. So that was kind of rare in the industry.
That sounds fun. Now, you had mentioned to me over email that when you first rediscovered your movie's new following, that you had sent it out to some of those other crew members. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of the people from filming?
Yeah, not a lot of the models per se, but Brad Austin, definitely. I was just texting him last night. And then Jeff, who was our still photographer, who was he did that cameo in Boy Band with Nance Freely. He was like her
The assistant.
So him and Shishi, not so much. You know, a lot of years when I first met Shishi was when I moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Early years with Catalina, we started in San Francisco because it was illegal to shoot in Los Angeles at that time. And then the courts passed a law that it was okay within the city limits. So they moved us down to LA. I met Shishi there. And for years, Shishi and I collaborated on a lot of movies like Lunch Hour and Power Tool 2. And, you know, Shishi would direct his own. And, you know, I'd work as producer on those. So Shishi, not so much because Shishi's kind of all over the place. But Brad Austin lives here in Palm Desert with me as well. So he's just in Palm Springs. I'm in Palm Desert, and Jeff is still in West Hollywood. But we still do communicate to this day.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. See, I haven't been able to get in contact with too many people from, you know, filming, but we had made contact with Steve Rambo about a year ago. We had a brief conversation with him. He's a very, very nice guy. He just didn't really want to go back into the limelight. He didn't really want, you know, any of this.
You know, I'm kind of surprised with Rambo, but then again, I'm not. I mean, he's a sweetheart, a total sweetheart. But if he's in a relationship and maybe his partner, because he was in a few relationships during our filming years, and if his partner is, you know, not responsive to his career, then he takes that very seriously. And that could be the situation with him, you know?
That's exactly what the situation is. He seemed okay with it. He was like, oh yeah, that'd be really fun. You know, it was his partner who was very unsure about it. And obviously, like, we're going to respect that. We're not going to force the man to do something he doesn't want to do. Right. But that was a little disappointing because I very much wanted to talk to him as well because he was like one of your biggest stars. He was in, you know, so many of your movies.
Yeah, and it was all kind of really by accident. So with Steve Rambo, we were on the set in West Hollywood shooting something for one of Brad Austin's movies, and the model didn't show up. And we called the GM because we were trying to get a model. So we called the GM from Catalina, and he also was running the Drake's bookstore in Melrose at that time. And he's like, well, you know, I'm going to send someone over. I'm like, okay. Normally I did the casting, so I was kind of shocked to hear this. So there was a worker that he had at the Drake's bookstore, Steve Rambo, and Mike had been trying to, you know, get him to commit to doing movies, and he was kind of like, you know, on the edge. But he said, you know what, they need someone. This could be your opportunity. Do you want to head over to the set? And he's like, yeah. So he came over to the set. The first time I ever met him, and from there he was hooked, and you know, he had a great look and had a great personality, and you know, Mike was really grateful to him for stepping in and saving the day there because it'd be thousands of dollars he would have lost. And they ended up eventually signing him to a contract, and he was like our contract for, 3 or 4 years. I mean, he was with us for quite a while.
He did quite a number of movies with you guys. Out of curiosity, do you remember how many movies you worked on specifically for Catalina? Like, obviously Catalina existed before you had done work for them, but how many movies did you make with them?
Well, I was looking for my list because I actually have a list that I had put together years ago when I was going to resend my resume out to adult companies after Channel 1, sort of, and I parted ways. And I couldn't find it this morning, but I have to say it's probably in the 80s or 90s.
Wow, that is some dedication, I gotta say. Oh my goodness, that is a lot.
Yeah, we were pumping them out. I mean, we were doing 2 movies a month for a good 3-year run there. You know, before it was kind of sporadic. We had John Travis, who directed Power Tool, and Scott Masters was the producer in the early years. So I was hired by both of them in an interview, and then started working with them in San Francisco. And then, so they would pretty much be the directors, and I was just doing camera work at that time. And then eventually was running their studio up there before we ended up moving to LA. So once they kind of left the company, it was kind of on me where Mike was like, I want you to be the producer. I want you to be in charge of the crew and hiring and locations and directing, and then eventually get more people groomed for directing. So that's kind of where, once they left, with Object of Desire was my last one under Scott Masters as my producer. And that's kind of the one that put me on the map. So I was at a good place at that point. There was where I kind of had like artistic freedom, you know, and like to give like a 20-something-year-old artistic freedom with a main company like Catalina at that time was kind of like unheard of. But that's kind of how I was able to incorporate my love of, like horror movies and cult movies and John Waters type movies and Russ Myers, who inspired me. That's how I was kind of able to incorporate that into the films that I made, because
Okay. That
they were letting me.
that kind of goes into answering another question that I had for you. It was, what got you interested in this line of work? Did you always have like an interest in movies, or was this something that was just like, oh, it's a job, but I actually like ended up enjoying it, so I kept doing it? Like, did you always want to go into film of some kind?
I've always wanted to go into film ever since I was like 7 years old when I got my first 8mm camera. I was always making these little, movies, like a movie called Possessed and Earthquake, and just, movies that I would make with my friends as kids. And I would have that little editor on the living room floor, the splicer. I'd be splicing that 8mm and putting the tape on and watching it back in the projector. So it was something I was always into. So when I got out of high school, I had applied and was accepted to the San Francisco Art Institute. So I moved from Rhode Island, where I was born, and to San Francisco at 17, and went to the San Francisco Art Institute and studied under this great teacher there named George Kuchar. And he had done kind of like an inspiration movie, which kind of, foreshadowed what I ended up doing. But he did this movie called Thundercrack. And it was this really kind of cultish movie, but there was hardcore sex in it. And I'm like, my mind is like blown. I'm like, class, and there's like this hardcore sex, yet it's like this really elaborate production, all shot in black and white. And so it kind of like blended the two mediums for me, where it became acceptable in my mind. This is like really cool stuff. And then, of course, living in San Francisco, I was obsessed with like John Waters movies and, different cult movies and stuff. So I wanted to go into legitimate film, of course. But everything was switching over to video at that time, because it was the 80s, right? So video was the new medium. So the opportunities were more in video. So after I left the Art Institute, I went to the Bailey School of Broadcast and studied video production for 2 years and graduated there. And then I just happened to answer this ad. I mean, I was a claims adjuster at, Guardian Life Insurance. So for years while I was doing all this. So I just answered this ad in the Bay Area Reporter, and it said, still photographer needed for adult videos. And I thought, well, I'm not a still photographer, but I felt like I'm pretty well versed in video. So I went and applied. And of course, in a seedy little motel room in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. And I'm like, what are you doing? Are you nuts? But, it was legit. It was Scott Masters was in one room, and I interviewed with him first. He was the producer for Catalina at that time, and William Higgins, who was, still.
Oh, that's a famous name. I've heard that one quite a bit.
Yeah, William Higgins started Catalina. He was Catalina. That was his company. So Scott Masters was his producer. And then John Travis, I went to go meet with him next. He was in the next room. Little did I know he had just, released the most popular movie of all time, Power Tool. So they liked me and they hired me. Well, of course, when I got to the set and worked on my first movie, which was Bulge by John Travis, I was doing the stills. And of course they sucked because I wasn't a still photographer. And I brought my friends' photos to the interview and showed them. So I'm not proud of that, but it got my foot in the door, and that's really what I needed. So I would say things transpired. They hired a new still photographer, but they put me on second camera for video. And within a couple of months, Dan Allman, who was the set director and ran the studio, well, he retired. And then all of a sudden I'm running their studio at 25 years old, because I was hired on my 25th birthday. And I'm running a studio in San Francisco until we eventually moved to LA. So I kind of just got in it, and I was like, in the cycle. And then I learned to really enjoy it, because they were really story heavy at Catalina compared to a lot of the other companies. And that was kind of right up my, my alley.
Right.
So, and I was learning so many different trades. I was building sets. I was learning how to do proper lighting. I was learning how to, get great videography from one of the best in the business, John Travis. So I was like a kid in a candy store,
Finally given all the tools you need to make that thing you wanted to make a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like it was like I was in a dream. It was like, it's just really happening. So I stuck with it, and I was dedicated with them all the way until the end.
Right. And going back to what you said about Catalina being very story driven, that's what has really helped this, stand out. Most adult films are kind of just like, one and done. You have your scene, you're done. There's no story to it. But, Catalina had that twist where there was like a genuine attempt to tell a good story. And that's why this has grown to such popularity.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely attracted me. You know, when we were like, when I was way back in like high school, and we were like, 16, 17 years old, we would sneak into this drive-in called the Rustic Drive-In in Massachusetts. And it was like the only X-rated drive-in I ever heard of in my life. But we would
Hmm.
like hide in the back seat and put blankets over us. And my friend who was 18 would drive us in. And we'd watch these stories like, Eruption with John Holmes and all these classic movies with, straight porn, of course, but that had all these great stories. So I was pulling from all of that and kind of bringing all of that into my experience with Catalina, but they were already there. So it was just like the perfect melding for
All right.
both of us.
How was the story writing like how was that handled? Were you given guidelines like that the company wanted to see in movies and then you wrote a story accordingly, or did you just have total creative freedom? I want to make a movie about a computer programmer who goes on the run. Like, what was the process like for that?
Well, in the early days when Scott Masters was my producer, he would have strict guidelines. I would have to go. He would say, "I want something about this, this, and that," and and I would work on my script. I would bring it to him when we would work everything out together. So at first it was very strict, but then once Scott Masters wasn't there and I was producer, I would just go to Mike and say, "I want to do a movie about this." He's like, "Okay." So as long as he liked the cast, important for him was that he liked the look of the guys. I stayed within budget, which I always stayed within budget, which was so like minuscule. I mean, there was just enough money to, pay for the actors, pay for the locations, and pay for our lunch. And maybe I'd have a couple $100 extra to like buy a prop here and there. I mean, that's how tight those budgets were. But they
Right.
gave free reign of storyline and content. Once I was producer, he just put it in my hands, and that was like, that was great.
This isn't a question that I have on the list, but I had asked the community if they had any questions for you. And one question that stood out to me was, do any props from Catalina movies still exist? Do you still own any of the props, or have they all been lost or destroyed?
Well, we did have, I mean, when I first got to Catalina, there's a huge wardrobe, like of just all the different clothes that the actor, like the shirts that Jeff Stryker wore in Power Tool and the outfits and all of that from all the productions. And a lot of that we just donated. When Catalina was sold to Channel One, we kind of just went through all that and we just donated. I would have loved to have kept some of them. I
Right.
did. I have very few. I have like the gun from Steve Rambo from the cover of
Oh, that is so cool.
I mean, I don't know why I kept that gun. It's just an air gun,
I,
but it's in the drawer over there. So I have that, and then I was looking around, and I don't really have a lot of props, but I found some one sheets.
okay.
So here's like a one sheet for classified action. I don't know, that's that coming out backwards or is that coming out correct?
That's good for me. It's coming clear for me.
Object of Desire was another. This is the movie that kind of put me on the map. Object of Desire,
Hmm.
and then this was. I know it's one of your questions coming up. Probably my least liked movie that I ever made.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's this one right here, Brother Trouble. Avoided at all costs. And I'll tell you that.
Okay, good to know. I'll avoid that one.
It was when I was Scott Masters was my producer, and they wanted me to do this movie in two parts, but they wanted me to split the budget. So my $13,000 budget, they wanted me to cut it down to like 6,500 and make Brother Trouble and Brother Trouble Part 2. Whereas it could have been a really good movie if it had just been one movie, but because they dragged it out and I wasn't really editing back then, the way it was cut and dragged out, and it was just like the most boring movie ever made. So they could
What was
burn.
what was your favorite movie? What was the most fun to work on?
The most fun to work on for me were the Bye Dolls movies.
You've referenced the mud fight scene before. That is something to behold. That one. Shishi and Sharon Kane they play phenomenal roles in that one. It's so much fun.
They're fantastic. Sharon Kane, I first met her when we did Valley of the Bye Dolls. And she was playing the Patty Duke role, right? Because it's a takeoff on Valley of the Dolls. And she wrote a great song for that, and we shot a cute little video for that. And from then, I was like obsessed with her because her acting was so great. And when her and Shishi were in the room together, I could just feel like, it was like magic, right? So when we did Revenge of the Bye Dolls, there was supposed to be this scene by the pool, which was going to be a takeoff on the Dynasty scene with Crystal and Alexis fighting in the lily pond. But the owner of the house had cleared out this whole area that he was going to plant a garden in, and it was just soil. And we're like, oh my God, wouldn't it be like amazing to go from the lily pond? And so I asked the owner, can we please spray this down, turn this into a mud fight? And we shot at his house all the time. So he was like, go for it. So it was really just on the fly that we ended up doing that. And that was just like, oh my God. That was
I love that. At the time of recording, that's been the newest movie to go live on the Catalina Collection channel. So fans have really only just gotten to see that mud fight. I had seen that a very long time ago when I first purchased that movie, and I thought it was like, you guys had so much fun shooting some of those scenes, and like you can feel that.
Yeah, we really did. We were getting off on how much fun we were having. You know, because you have to, because when you're shooting the sex, it's all very serious. You want to capture every moment. You want to be able to get it from a bunch of different angles. So it's all about, you know, that's what's going to, you know, what your movie really is about is the sex. So you're really focusing a lot on that. So then it was kind of like our release to be able to work on the fun scenes, you know, that we, you know, and we did enjoy that. There was lots of laughs on that set, I'll tell you.
I could imagine. I can imagine that one. Going back just a little bit, you had mentioned that you had to split up some movies in the past. There were other movies that had sequels as well, like Cockpit 1 and 2. Cockpit ends on a cliffhanger. You kind of have to finish that one. Were there any other movies that, you know, maybe you guys had planned a sequel to or wanted to make a sequel to? Like I said in emails, I'm still waiting for Catalinaville Part 2. I really want you to make that if you can.
Well, I did really want to make a sequel to Single White Male. In fact, I had the script in here, and it was literally just like 2 months ago. We were like cleaning the office. I'm like, oh, I don't need this. And I like just tossed it in the trash, but I had kept it for all these years. And Single White Male was it was probably, you know, one of my favorite movies working on as well. It was with Rob Christen, and he ended up getting Best Actor for that one. And it was a takeoff, of course, on Single White Male. You know, I would like to, you know, plagiarize every now and again, like something with
inspirations.
That sounds a lot better. And so that one I really wanted to make a sequel to. And of course, I hadn't intended on making the third part of Bye Dolls at all. It was
I can tell it kind of ends like Revenge of the Bye Dolls ends with them dying, and then they come back as zombies. That was a very interesting way to do that.
And the problem with that was it won Best Buy Picture. And it was like, and the GM at Catalina is like, we're going to make part 3. And I'm like, well, how am I going to do that?
I killed the characters. What am I going to do?
So I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then, you know, all of a sudden it's like, you know, I've always been a horror film fan. I thought, well, you know what? If I got to make it, then I'm going to make it, you know, bring them back as zombies. What the hell?
What the hell, right? Another big one that people love with Sharon Kane and Shishi LaRue is Switchcraft. That's another really big movie that everybody loves.
Yeah. That was a really fun movie to make. That was in the school with the students, you know, the oldest looking students.
Right. You know, what did she say? I have a glandular problem, something like that. But that one gets a kick out of me.
Oh my God, that scene between Sharon Kane as the gym instructor and Shishi as the, you know, Edwina Simplestein, the student who was persecuted in that school.
Right.
I mean, that's one of my favorite scenes of all time. Another great one that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere is called The Hills Have Eyes. And that has some real amazing scenes with Shishi and Sharon in that. You know what? Yes. Walk in the room. Come on.
Who else we got? Who's coming on?
We got Coach Collins here from the Rascal series, also known as Super Mario, I think.
Oh, there he is. Hello again. How are you?
Again. Excuse me. They're really good.
So this is Tony Fontana. And he was in a bunch of my movies. He's my partner, my spouse, and we've been together for 20 years.
Oh. Mr. Fontana, you are very famous for your role in Boy Band. Again, that's probably one of your more famous movies. Everyone loves you as like the grouchy uncle who doesn't want to drive Steve Rambo home because he went fishing, and people just love you for that role. And going back to that nickname Super Mario, Catalina has gotten very popular all around the world. It's very big in Russia and Japan, as well as the United States. So every country kind of gives you guys different nicknames. So in Japan, you're known as Super Mario. In Russia, Steve Rambo is known as the Naked Hacker. Like there's a lot of fun nicknames. So the Super Mario is actually it's a Japanese nickname for you, believe it or not.
Oh, that's funny.
That's real funny.
Yeah, and they refer to Ray Harley as Luigi, Super Mario's brother, because you both have the mustaches. So that's how they refer to you guys.
Oh,
Well, that was all fun during that whole period of doing all those videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had some fun roles. You always made the scenes a lot more fun when you showed up. The cameos of you guys was always super entertaining. It was like, oh, there's Josh Eliot. He's a passenger on Cockpit when the plane crashed.
That was actually
interesting.
my favorites, Cockpit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing Cockpit was one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
Cockpit
of
too.
all of them.
Brad Austin directed those 2 movies. He did a great
Yeah.
job on those movies. Those are really fun.
I could imagine the plane set, because you guys had to shoot inside of an airplane. Was that an actual plane, or was that a set that you guys had built?
All right, so we really lucked out. Okay, we had a budget for that one a little bit, and we really lucked out because do you remember the first Charlie's Angels movie with Drew Barrymore?
Yes.
Well, there's an opening scene in there in an airplane. Well, that set, they had just finished filming on that set, and somehow we were notified that set was still there and we could use that. So we went in there and used it just after they did. So it was their set. It had like a separate cockpit. It had the set of the body of the plane. And but it was very expensive, which, we didn't have a budget for. So we kind of went in there and we just shot. Someone was shooting in the cockpit while someone else was shooting in the plane. And we kept telling them, shut up, we're rolling. And it was, shut up, we're rolling, quiet. I mean, it was just like chaos. But we were like just so stoked to be able to like be in that set, and we just like milked it as much as we could. We're like
that is amazing. I obviously I've seen the other movie, but I never would have put together that they were the same set. That's mind blowing to me. I never even would have thought of that.
Yeah, just look at the seat colors. That way you'll know.
Ah, okay. There's some external shots of the plane. I don't know how much involvement you had with that, but there's some external shots where like you can see the plane flying through the sky, and off the corner of the screen, obviously it was a model that they had used, but you can see the person's thumb holding the plane as it flies through the sky in the cockpit shot.
Yeah,
and
I'm pretty sure that was my thumb.
Was it? Okay. Okay, I love noticing little things like that. They're called like movie mistakes. It's things that like obviously weren't meant to be left in, but they give some character. It makes it seem a little more fun when you find stuff like that.
Very realistic, yes.
Yeah, very realistic. Hey, for the longest time, I thought that was actual footage of a plane flying until someone had pointed out to me, look, you can see the guy's thumb, and I'm like, that must be a model. That makes sense now.
I know. I remember it didn't look that bad. We were really like kind of shaking it like there was wind blowing it.
It looked believable.
Good. I didn't know the thumb was there.
It looked believable. Right. Maybe you can go back and see that at some point. But yeah, there's a thumb there.
See you later, because I'm going to leave.
All right. Well, it was very nice talking to you. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I guess, well, that really only leaves me with one final question. Do you have any other fun stories or trivia or anything else you want to shed some light on?
Well, I know you were mentioning Ray Harley, right? Back there. So one good little story we have is we would go to Chicago to film the International Mr. Leather Contest. And they put us all up at the Congress Hotel in Chicago. And it was just like completely filled with Leathermen. Well, Brad Austin was looking out the window and he saw there was another tower across the way. And he sees some guy there jerking off, looking down at another window down below, and Chuck's like, look at that guy. And then so he was looking at it a bit, and then he wrote a note and put it up in the window, but they didn't notice anything. So he ran over to that tower. He figured out what floor they were on. He figured out what room he was on. He found that guy, and that guy was Ray Harley.
No way.
No word of a lie.
Wow.
Harley, and Chuck introduced himself, gave him this card. We met for drinks down in the lobby. And Ray Harley was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. And then Ray Harley became one of our exclusives as well. So that's how we discovered him. Believe it or not. I mean, he's, from, I won't say what city, but he's from Canada.
Right. That I know.
For leather. And that's how we discovered him. And it was just like, wow.
Oh, my goodness. The Ray Harley origin story. That is a wild one. I love that.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good fun.
That is a wild one. I had one other question for you. What was it? I'm blanking on it right this second. One of the only other like interview type appearances you've had that I know of. You had done a behind the scenes clip for His Terrible Twin, where you kind of went over like bloopers and things like that. I know Captain Psychopath had asked you this question because he's working on a video for His Terrible Twin, but for the viewers of this channel, why did the name change from His Wicked Twin to His Terrible Twin? What is that? What's the story behind that one?
The story is I'm still annoyed to this day that name changed, and I just hate the word terrible. It just is annoying.
It's terrible.
It's awful. I mean, once they released a movie called that, I was pissed. I'll tell you. So what it was is there's an adult company in LA called Wicked Pictures. Okay, and they're a straight adult film company. Well, we released all the ads like in AVN and all the magazines for His Wicked Twin. And then all of a sudden the lawyers call the GM of Catalina and like, you need to cease and desist using the word wicked. We have that trademarked. And I was like, oh my God, really? Because they were, they would have gone forward, they have a lot of lawyers. Well, adult companies have lots of lawyers on their payroll because they needed it back then. So Mike was like, you need to change it. There's just no way around it. We have to change it. And so I was trying to come up with some different names, and he goes, we're going to call it Terrible, His Terrible Twin. I said, I don't really like terrible. He goes, no, we're calling it His Terrible Twin. It's got to go to press. We got to change it today. I'm like, okay.
I mean, so, it still works. It gets the point across. It lets you know that there's this evil little wicked, twin that's actually in the guy's head. That was a very interesting twist in that one. I gotta say, I never saw that coming. That
wow. Well, that was like the first time I know our special effects back then were like, we didn't have the great abilities we do now. But to do like that split screen where they were talking to each other
in the house on the couch, the evil twins on one side and the good twins on the other one. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was fun. I loved making that movie. We got to film some of that in Provincetown. We filmed some of it, of course, in Palm Desert. Had a great cast in that. In hindsight, I would have cut that Sharon Kane song probably.
No, that's people love that song. This gonna sound crazy, but I know that song by heart. I've had to listen to it so many times.
Well, it's a great song. I wouldn't have cut the song itself, but I think I just should have shot it better. Because I think the whole thing is just back and forth, face to face, whereas I could have made a montage to really, bring that song out. I think the way it was shot is just kind of like camera here. And, so it plays a little boring, but no, the song's great. And they did a good job on it. But
all of the songs that Sharon Kane had done are, actually pretty good. She had done the song in Boy Band, I believe. She had done, the songs from the Bye Dolls movies. There's another one. What am I blanking on here?
She also did, I think she did a song like in every bisexual movie I did with her. So she did The Hills Have Eyes is a great song too. And you'll hear it when I find the disc and send it to you.
We got to get that one.
And we did a great montage on that where they're driving in this old beat up convertible. Like it just looks like, because it's like this, basically what it's about is it's this hillbilly family that marries into a Beverly Hills family. And they go in there, the parents are meeting, and the parent of the hillbilly family, of course, is Shishi. And
goodness.
Sharon Kane. So, I mean, it's like, the clash of the classes, but there's this old beat up convertible that our friend from the Gold Coast, he was a bouncer at the Gold Coast, had. And like, we need you in your car. We need you for this. So we filmed them driving through Beverly Hills as the hillbillies in this convertible past these beautiful mansions and singing The Hills Have Eyes. And it's just like probably one of my favorite parts.
The other song I was thinking of was the Friends and Lovers song from Catalinaville. When Steve and the other gentlemen are in the boat at the beginning. That's another very popular song. Like the fans love the vocal tracks that you guys had done. You didn't have to do that, but like you went above and beyond and you gave these movies like the love and, personality.
Well, everyone loves a good show tune. Let's face it, right? so yeah, the fact that she could sing and, like in Revenge of the Bye Dolls, that opening scene where her and
Shishi, yeah,
doing a duet. I mean, that was just like, I was just so thrilled with that. And that house was actually Sharon Stone's old house.
Okay,
but she got out of it when we were there. But that was Sharon Stone's old house. A little bit of trivia there, I guess, too.
Very interesting. I'm a sucker for the trivia behind this stuff. It makes me really wish that more behind the scenes like footage existed from these. Like, do you know if any bloopers or anything like that survives? Is that still around?
Yeah, you know what? Because when I was at Catalina, back down in the valley, we cut together years, a whole a whole freaking master of bloopers all the way back from Power Tool to like everything that was done since. And it was a good 45 minutes. And God knows, well, probably Channel One might have that somewhere in their vaults because all of the, masters went to Channel One. So there's a 3/4 master somewhere, and it might be at Channel One.
Oh my goodness!
And it would say bloopers on it. And I mean, if they can find that, that would be brilliant. We ton of them together.
The amount of money that I would pay for that.
Yeah, me too at this point, because that was really good nostalgia.
Right, because again, really the only existing bloopers that we've been able to find is a set you had done for His Terrible Twin, where like Ray Harley trips over his lines, and Sharon Kane messes up singing the song, and that's really the only set of bloopers that we've been able to find, and we've scoured these things, but
yeah,
I wish more of that existed.
I do too. There's definitely more there because I would remember them from the set. And we go back to, to start editing, like, oh, pull this blooper and throw it on the blooper reel. I'm telling you, it's there. It's there. Someone just has to dig deep and find it.
I don't know how much involvement you've had with Channel One as of late. They have been re-releasing your movies on DVD again. New box art, stuff like that. A lot of scenes have been cut. I assume that's just due to contracts and licensing and things like that. But they just haven't done a good job in terms of audio mastering. I had purchased, I want to say it was Thrill Me, which is another big one that everybody loves. I purchased a Thrill Me re-release DVD, and it was almost as if they took a VHS recording and just pressed it onto a DVD and sold it. It wasn't a very good mastering. So I've, over the time that I've been doing this, I've been trying to pull from multiple sources to re-edit the best cuts that I possibly can. There's a lot of scenes from Thrill Me that have been cut out of the newer re-releases. So, if you go back and you watch my upload on the YouTube channel of Thrill Me, there's 3 different DVDs that I purchased and spliced into one upload.
I remember that when I watched it, I remember hearing about that you had to take different. Well, that's sad. I mean, Channel One, I really haven't been in contact with since 2009. We basically, when Catalina was sold to Channel One, there was a 2-year contract to keep us on there. And then, 2 years to the day,
out the door. See ya.
So, that's when I kind of said, well, you know what? I think I'll just, reinvent myself and just do something else from now on.
Right.
And that's kind of what I did for the last number of years. But it's kind of sad to think that they're not using the best master possible. I know there was some years where we were mastering off Super VHS. And that could be the case with that, because for some reason we were going from beautiful 3/4 inch copies, masters. And then all of a sudden someone at, the powers that be said, oh no, Super VHS is the new mastering format. And it was like, oh my God. And I was like, the lines going through there. What are you talking about? This looks like crap. No, the quality is better. There's more this and that. And I'm like, whatever. But so that lasted for a year. So maybe one of the masters they were pulling from was one of those Super VHS masters, which in my opinion, it was crap. Then eventually went to mini DV, and then, DV cam was a beautiful master again. But there was a chunk in there where a lot of them were on Super VHS, and that could be the case with
right, and that's kind of what I figured. I mean, maybe the original masters have been lost over time, and all they had was this VHS tape that they didn't really have a choice. They wanted to re-release it, but it's all they had.
I know, but there's enough tools that they can use now to kind of,
right. I mean,
but
listen, if I'm essentially remaking movies on consumer-based hardware, with not a lot of video expertise, I'm sure a company like that could do it, but.
Yeah, because the quality of yours looks great. I'm surprised that the quality looks, when I'm usually like, wow, how did they get it to look so good? Because I remember, it was on VHS or whatever, it didn't look muddy, and yours is great.
One of the, again, this is something I talked to you about over email. One of the latest endeavors that I've been getting into is automated intelligence upscaling. So it's using computer automation to kind of like make the image quality better to kind of create detail that was lost when, you know, it was pressed to DVD or released digitally. I've had, you know, decent enough results. I've been able to bump up Boy Band, Catalinaville, and Thrill Me to 4K, to like one of the higher resolutions these days. They don't look great, but it's a drastic improvement. And again, it's like, if I can do something like that, I feel like the company that owns them should, you know, put a little more effort in.
I agree. You know, my worst mistake I think I ever made was when Mike West came to me and said he's going to sell Catalina. And, you know, there was kind of like a conversation about, you know, what I wanted out of the sale or whatever. I really wish I would have handpicked some masters and said, I'd like the rights to these.
Right.
You know, but, you know, young and stupid and really wasn't thinking it through, and, you know, was thrilled to be going to work for Channel One, you know. So I really didn't push it, but that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. Because if I had, you know, control of those now, of course, you know, then I'd be able to work something out to make, you know, those the best quality. But
right, we'd have the official Catalinaville 4K Blu-ray release. It would be
right. I know exactly. So
that's the dream.
And, you know, they have such a vast library over at Channel One. I mean, they've got, you know, they purchased so many companies that, you know, they've got a lot on their plate for what they're doing. So I kind of understand, you know.
It's just, listen, we absolutely love your work. Me and the community are doing everything we possibly can to preserve your movies, you know, in the highest quality possible. Because again, you know, Channel One is just not doing a very good job at it. And, you know, they're good movies. You know, they deserve, you know, the best treatment they can possibly get.
Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, I really do. And it's such a great surprise to know that it actually has been going on and is happening. You know, I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you very much.
That again, those words just mean the world to me. I never thought that I'd be having this conversation with you.
That's dedication, I'll tell you that.
Man, who are you telling? Again, I found that copy of the Steve Rambo Fan Club VHS tape. We found that on eBay. So it was one of those things where, like, the money didn't matter. It was this like holy grail that we'd been looking for years, and there it is on eBay. So bought it immediately. It shipped. I didn't own a VHS player at the time, so I had to then buy a VHS player. I had to buy software to record, but that was probably the best find that we've ever had.
Yeah. That would be something that's almost impossible to find, I would venture to say. So good job on finding that.
Right, because you had said you only sent out like 100 copies of that. So that's a collector's piece right there. That is rare.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Steve Rambo Fan Club, which would advertise at the end of each movie, and then, I mean, I know it was only ever done on VHS. I don't think they ever did it on DVD. So it was, you know, a little time period that they did that, and, you know, I'm guessing at 100. I don't think it was much more than that, but, you know, the GM would know mostly because he was in charge of that. But damn, to find that's like, well, you found that. Find the bloopers.
I know that's the next goal. But the trailers for the fan club have been on the internet for years. You know, everybody knows it's Steve Rambo. Hi, I'm Steve Rambo. I'd like to invite you to my fan club. Everybody knows those videos, but no one could ever find the actual fan club tape that he shows off. Yeah, and then one day, someone had sent me a message on Twitter with a listing to an eBay auction, and I didn't hesitate. I just bought it immediately.
You must have been jumping out of your skin.
You have no idea. The 2 times I ever jumped out of my skin was when I found that tape and when you commented on my YouTube videos. When I saw that name and you were like, I had so much fun filming this one, I was sitting on the couch. I jumped up onto my couch like Tom Cruise did in that Oprah interview. Like, I jumped up on the couch, and I remember sending videos to my friends. I was like, Josh Eliot commented on my videos. That was a mind-blowing experience.
Oh, that blows my mind knowing all this is going on.
I'm sorry you were so late to the party, unfortunately.
I know, right?
You have filled me with a lot of determination and motivation to keep this going.
Well, it's much appreciated. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a legacy that's being preserved is the way I look at it. And the fact that people all around the world are, you know, having like a positive response to it.
Right.
It's thrilling. It's very, very thrilling. Thrill me.
Thrill me. Yes. Oh, you know what? Just out of the blue, I've thought of one other question that I think I really need to get the answer to on this one. You had a movie called Cute Enough to Eat. where it's all about virtual reality and these goggles, and Steve Rambo gets trapped in a virtual reality world, and it's very creepy and spooky. People have been asking for a very long time, why in the world was it called Cute Enough to Eat when every other title had something to do with the movie itself?
Well, again, that was another one that was, the title was switched, and the GM switched it, and the box cover was totally changed. It was all of a sudden this guy's laying on a bunch of.
It was
fake
Zachary
fruit.
Pierce. It was Zachary Pierce, right? I own that one.
Excellent model. And so we had shot the box cover one way. It was called something else, and I can't for the life of me right now remember what it was called.
I would love to know that.
Completely different. And Mike's like, no, we're going to change this. I really want to promote this model. I just want to make it more like a mainstream type feel. And he's got a bubble butt, so let's pose him this way. And, you know, and we're going to call it Cute Enough to Eat. And I'm like, Cute Enough to Eat? He's like, yeah, we're calling it Cute Enough to Eat. And I want you to reshoot the box cover with all this fruit and stuff like this. And I thought, oh my God, he's been smoking weed.
Oh my goodness.
And so anyway, so we had to reshoot it and call it Cute Enough to Eat. And that's the end of that story. I don't remember what the title was, but I know it was much better than that.
That movie's a lot of fun. That's another really big popular one. I've always noticed that something was off with that, because Zachary Pierce has like a single scene in that movie, and he's not even really like the main focus, but here he is like on the cover art, like full spread.
No, it was actually, not to bring that up, but you're right. It was a different model on the cover of the original. It was whoever the lead was in that movie. It was probably Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
And I still do have that little Santa with the heart on.
Oh, no way. You still have the little Santa?
Yeah, it's up with the Christmas stuff, but it comes out of...
That's another little oddity that fans adore about that movie. It's just so out there. You got this little Santa Claus with the and Steve Rambo's just, you know, looking at him like...
I was always looking to just like do something bizarre, you know, or just, you know, I'm kind of like all over the place when it comes to like, you know, oh, let's throw this in there. Let's throw this in there. Just kind of little oddities in there. It's just, you know.
Yeah. There were a few movies that you had done that were just like very out there in terms of concept, like Cute Enough to Eat. 69 is another big one that everybody quotes as like very odd. What's the story with that one?
You know, it's odd because I think it really didn't mesh together. So the idea with that one, 69, is that there's this like artificial intelligence, who, you know, young kid. And so there's a young person playing it. Then there's, you know, sort of older person playing Skylar. Then there's Rambo playing Skylar. Mm-hmm. So, and it's about this adventures in 1969, how this artificial intelligence sort of robot or whatever shows up on the doorstep of these guys' house, like in Palm Springs, you know, with a full moon. And then it kind of follows his journey. But I always felt like I never really connected those journeys together so well that it really made it understandable. And then it was just, the whole production was kind of riddled with problems. So when it came to the end, I didn't know how to end it. I mean, I'll be honest. Because I hadn't written the ending, and all of a sudden we were there to shoot it.
That was a wild ending. That one ends very. It's very artsy. It's very artsy. That one.
It was like, you know, I showed up like she would show up sometimes with like written on a paper towel what the script was, and I showed up that day, and it was like, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to end this? Like all the models are here, and I just had no idea how to end it, and it's very muddled and confusing, you know. And really, the whole inspiration for that entire movie came from the fact that I was able to buy some stock footage for once I could spend some money. And I bought the stock footage, which is like the opening credits, is all this kind of weird, mystical stock footage. And that's what gave me the idea for the whole movie. So really, I was just editing the stock footage together and got inspired by that. And then I really didn't know what kind of movie I was telling. So I didn't know how to end it. So the confusion is justified.
Like when you go back and you watch it, it's definitely an out there experience, but you walk, like, it has like that campy kind of appeal to it, where like it does try to like tell a serious story in a way, but you can walk away from it like, okay, that was kind of silly, but that was fun. Like I enjoyed that one.
My favorite part in that is the transition from the middle guy.
Where it like spins around Steve Rambo. That's an excellent.
I was so impressed with myself with coming up with that shot. How to do that, where it kind of spins around him and all of a sudden pans up and it's Rambo, and that he's aged. And then, but poor Rambo. I mean, it was the heat of summer. It was like 115 degrees, and I had him over at a park there shooting in that heavy leather coat, like doing stuff in the crucible, grinding corn, like,
sleeping in a hut. Like, it was very.
Oh my God, poor Rambo. I mean, I don't think I ever tortured him as much as I tortured him that day.
Oh my goodness.
But he's a trooper. You know, that's what makes him so wonderful, is that he was just like a genuine friend, you know, and wonderful guy. And he would just dive in full force with whatever we asked him to do. You know, he was that in Catalina when he popped up out of that sewer with the gun.
Yeah.
It was in winter. You know, winter in LA is, you know, it's not like winter everywhere else, but it was winter. The pool temperature was like 56 degrees. So, and he had to keep doing that. Hoses as well. So.
Right. Climbing the wall and shooting with the gun in the water.
Kudos to Rambo.
Poor guy. That's terrible. One thing that people have always said is that Catalinaville ends very abruptly. There's like the fight in the pool in the water, and he just walks out of the sewer and he's like, okay, time to give you to the police. And then it just ends. Was that the intended ending, or did you have like more story in mind for that?
No, I think, you know, going back, I'm trying to remember it, but I remember, he comes out of the sewer, and then that's kind of like it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was probably the intended ending. I didn't really, Catalinaville was, you know, I say that they, you know, a lot of the ideas I was able to come up with myself, but that was really an idea that came from the GM. You know, he wanted to make this kind of like sort of spy story with Rambo, and it would be the big movie of the year, and we call it Catalinaville. So it was kind of built around his idea. So I think that I was invested at the time in it, but it wasn't like something where I'm like, oh my God, I got to make another of these, you know. Didn't, you know.
With all of the new fame and attention that's come to these movies, if given the opportunity, would you ever be willing to make a sequel to that movie? Because I joke about it, like Catalinaville 2, but would you ever be willing to make a sequel to that?
Yeah, I would always jump back behind the camera again in a second, and I would, you know, I'd do it with 100%. Mm-hmm. You know, something that when we parted ways with Channel 1, you know, it left a little bit of a sting, you know, and I lost a little bit of my, you know, self-worth, I'd have to say, because I've been doing it for so long. And I was like, you know, well, what am I going to do now? I don't want to move back to LA. You know, I'm just going to kind of reinvent myself. And, you know, so I worked in like the spa industry for like, you know, the following years up until COVID. I've been working at, you know, at the spa. So, which is kind of like relaxing for me. I would always go there on vacation and go to the spa. So I thought, well, that's really my job.
That's a perk. It's a benefit.
And it's a benefit. So yeah, I've always had it in the back of my mind that I'd like to go back and you know, shoot a movie here and there. So if the opportunity came, I absolutely would jump at it. Yeah.
Maybe as one last hurrah for the Catalina collection, we'll crowdfund something and make a new movie.
Well, you know, that's great because the quality, at least it wouldn't look like a VHS tape. It's,
right.
You know, the quality of things.
We could shoot it on, you know, 8K cameras and all this. Like, we'll make it work. Another running joke is that if the channel were to ever hit 1 million subscribers, we would try to get all the old crew back together and recreate one of the movies. Like, see if we could get, you know, Rambo to join in and Ray Harley and like shot for shot recreate one of your movies as like a big grand celebration. But I don't think we're ever going to get that far, you know, in terms of followers, but that would be a dream come true for me if we could put something together like that.
That would too. That would be a blast. And all of us doing it together, that'd be so much fun.
The ultimate tribute to Catalina and Josh Eliot and all of the works. That would, I get butterflies thinking about that.
Well, this has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We've already been talking for over an hour here, and you probably got other stuff to do. But I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for everyone out there who's been watching these movies and enjoying them. It just makes me feel really good, and it's so great meeting you. And I'll put that list together and send you whatever you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will talk soon. Again, just thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. All right.
All right. You take care.